G'day, Heesoo. Welcome to Landscape Photography World. How are you going?
Hi Grant, I'm good. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I've been really. It's been good to listen to your podcast throughout the past few months.
Oh, thanks for listening. And thank you very much for being a part of it. As you know, I've been chasing you for a little while,
Uh,
and it's great to get you on board. Let's start with a little bit about you and why you started in photography. Where did the bug bite?
I guess a little bit about me. I've always been interested in like exploring different locations and and was I still am doing parkour, if I guess if you know what that is.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, yeah, so way back I used to do like competitions, and on this one trip I went over to Greece to try to compete in a Red Bull competition. And then I thought, I might as well just take my camera because I was going on like a 4 month backpacking trip in Asia after that. So I was like, I'll just get a camera. Why not just get some touristy shots just for the memories.
Sure.
Um, and what happened after that was it was like a switch that just flipped in my brain, and it was just really fun. Like photography was really fun. Next thing I knew was it wasn't it the backpacking trip turned into a photography trip. So
Okay.
every day I'd wake up and I'd just walk all day just along the city, because Asia is just full of big cities. So I was just walking in the city, just taking whatever photos I could get, and then just rinse and repeat every day for the 4 months. And then once I got back into Sydney, I pretty much spent like everything I had on trying on a DSLR, and then just
Yeah.
kept the habit up. And I would just go out in the city, in Sydney, and just explore the city and just try to photograph as much as I can.
Yeah. Cool. I'm really interested. You tend to try to get to some places that a lot of people don't go. Uh, what's that about for you? Is that about trying to find that unique shot, or is it just the exploration factor?
I think adventure, the adventure aspect is a huge part of my photography. I think um, if there's no sense of like, adventure, um, then I'm not really connected, or I guess there's no emotional pull to that
Mhm.
image that I get. So I think
Sure.
so. The motivation behind getting to all these places is just that sense of adventure I get by going to those places. Like the whole process is just it feels like an adventure. So I don't know. For me, that feeling is really it's very satisfying and fulfilling when I finally go to these places. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Are you doing a lot of planning or pre-planning before you get out there, or is it more spontaneous?
Some trips are spontaneous, like some locations, like Kosciuszko, for as an example.
Yeah.
The weather just you just can't predict it. Like it could be forecasted for low clouds, but that could mean just fog, or just it could just clear up just out of nowhere. But in terms of say like some of my astro work and star trails, then that's pretty much all planning.
Mm, mm.
They've all planned. I've done like trips to suss out spots, figured out like compositions bit well beforehand, and then I come back when the conditions are right, and then just execute the plan.
Yeah. Cool. And how long are you taking? What sort of tools are you using, and how long are you taking in that sort of planning for, say, an astro trip?
Um, the actual planning in terms of just like building out the composition in my head and just figuring out what I need, it doesn't take that long, but it's just waiting for the composition, like the conditions to line up. Like
Yeah,
say
right.
for like a star trail at a very particular place, I need to go during a new moon where there's no moon. I need clear skies. Um, and then while I'm waiting for that, I'm just constantly just thinking about the composition, just revisiting it in my head.
Mm,
And then when the conditions finally line up, it's just time to go.
yeah, right. some of my favorite images from you are the dusk till dawn shots where you've basically set up, you've got the camera in one spot, and you're basically time lapsing it over a, you know,
Yeah,
well, in summer it's probably a little bit shorter, but in winter it could be, nearly a 12-hour
yeah.
period. So firstly, what's that about? What is it? What is it that I guess gave you that idea to start doing that? And I guess secondly, how do you actually have the patience to set up and sit there for that long?
I guess how I got first started in it. I remember watching a YouTube tutorial on how to shoot star trail photography.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was by Tony and Chelsea Northrop.
Yep. Yep.
Um, yeah, after watching that tutorial, that got me so pumped because it just explained the whole process so well. So as soon as I watched that, I dropped everything, went to the Blue Mountains, and tried my hand at star trails, and that turned out okay. And then I did a few more star trails because I was like, hey, I can actually do this. So this one time I tried to get some star trails over the city from a place called North Head in Manly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the problem with that spot is they close the gates to the car park quite early.
Yeah.
Um, so knowing this, I pretty much just started shooting from sunset and then shot as late as I could before they shut the gates.
Right.
And then when I got back home, I tried to blend them all together, and then somehow like it just worked. And that kind of gave me the idea of, hang on, I could shoot from sunset into night. And then I did a few more of those. I just tried the concept a bit more, and then eventually got to a point where I thought, what if, like, how can I push this idea further? What if I got like a rock or a peak to be lit up from both sides? Like,
Yeah.
I can
Right.
do I can do one side from sunset to night. So what if I could do it from sunset to sunrise? So I tried it in the Blue Mountains, and it worked. And I was like, okay, I've got this works. I'm gonna keep going with it.
Cool. So the second bit was how do you get the patience for sort of setting up and leaving the tripod and camera set up? Are you doing a time lapse during that period, or is it more just selective shots during the night that you sort of choose?
On the patient side, it's I guess it's one part just very very motivated to just get that one shot I have in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you think about that one image for like a few months. And you're finally there, the conditions are perfect. You just want to get the shot.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, the second part is it it feels really slow. I think maybe the first 2 3 hours. It just seems to drag on for a while, and then after that point, um, especially in the dark and nothing much really changes. You, I find that I just get to this mental state, um, where time seems to speed up in a sense,
Wow. Okay.
and you just get used to just sitting there, just watching stars or just letting the time pass.
Yeah.
It's this really weird state, but yeah, it's definitely enjoyable sometimes. But in terms of like the shots, I guess there are specific moments where I do want to take photos of, say like sunlight hitting this side of the peak, or
Yeah.
when the sun goes down, there's that horizon glow, and I want that on the left side or the right side. And then for the stars, once it gets dark enough, I usually just, once I've nailed the settings for the stars, I just let it go for as long as I can.
Right. Right. Yeah. So it's not just a matter of just setting it up once and just letting it do a time lapse over a period. Though I know you've done a few time lapses from some of your videos that I've seen.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you definitely have to think about like which exact shots that you want, or what kind of light or what you want in a particular area of a frame. Otherwise, you just be shooting hundreds of photos for no reason, really.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, I don't normally get into the how of somebody this early in the podcast. It's usually about the why. But I'm going to come to the why. Why that shot? What is it that makes you want to do that?
um, why? I guess the core of it, it's about challenging myself, really. It's,
Mhm.
oh, can I take that shot? Can I, like, what's involved in taking that shot? It's just having the challenge and just figuring out how to overcome all these little details about that challenge. I find really fun and
Mm.
satisfying. And especially when it all works out and you see the image in front of you, it's like, wow, I did it. What's next?
Yeah, cool. So, do you treat each of those shots? Because I mean, at the end of it, you might end up with, a couple of hundred exposures, I'd imagine, and you then trying to work out what to blend and pull it all together at the end. Do you treat each of those individual shots that you end up with at the end as a specific project in their own right, or is it part of a broader, I guess, project portfolio sort of project that you're thinking about?
They're definitely just individual projects. They're just ideas I have floating in my head that are fun to execute. And
Mhm.
once I execute them, I just look for the next challenging thing.
In terms of when you started, I mean, this is obviously a really deliberate and intentional artistic choice that you're making to get that shot of a single image where, as you say, you've got the light from sunset and the light from dawn,
Mhm.
plus either a star field or a star trail or whatever. Are you looking, I guess, to that's obviously an artistic choice, as I say.
Yeah.
When did the artistic sort of side of photography hit for you? I mean, most people, as you said, you took your camera with you on a backpacking, so it was kind
Yeah.
of recording what you're seeing. When did the switch flip and say, hey, this is art, it's no longer just a recording of what I'm seeing?
It was pretty, I mean, I guess I got, I fell in love with the process of it pretty early on. I found, I found composition was a thing. So I just tried to, I guess, improve my composition while I was on that backpacking trip. But what really flipped the switch was when just before I got back into landscape photography, I went on a trip to the Blue Mountains with some of my friends. Um, and I was just mind blown at just how, I guess, beautiful the Blue Mountains is. Like, I
Yeah, yeah,
just, yeah, it just flicked the switch in my head where it was just, yeah, I was just like, oh, this is going to be my thing now. I'm just going to shoot landscapes.
fantastic.
Yeah.
I guess what in terms of that creative inspiration, um, how do you that always comes with some level of failure and setbacks because you can't just automatically go out there and start taking brilliant shots from nowhere. Nobody, you've got to learn the craft and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
How have you handled those sort of setbacks and failures, and what are you learning from them each time you go out and you try something new or different, and you come back and you go, yeah, it was okay, but it didn't really work. It wasn't what you had imagined.
Mm.
How do you sort of extend beyond that disappointment and into turning that into a lesson that you can action?
Um, how do I deal with it? It's kind of, so as I mentioned, I was a parkour athlete before photography, or still am, but not to the same extent.
Sure.
I think I it's definitely helped me in terms of a mindset where, like, an athlete's mindset is you just grind away at just constantly improving yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think I took that part into my photography, and I basically once I spot a composition and I figure out what kind of conditions I want for it, I just give it a go. And if it doesn't work, then I just keep on going and just grinding away at it. And then when I finally do get it, it's a sense of relief, and then I can go to another shot that I can just keep trying.
Yeah, sure.
But in terms of just what I learn from each attempt, it's I think it's cool in that, because like what I'll sometimes chase it, actually quite a few times I'll chase one shot, um and in those moments where I fail and I know I failed, I'm still at the spots and I'm still looking around, getting to know the location and the different, I guess, more nuances of the spots.
Yeah,
And in those moments I usually find like other compositions that are even better than what I was planning.
yeah, right.
um so so those little bits of, I guess, inspiration um, keep me coming back to some spots over and over and over.
In terms of the artistic expression, what sort of things are you aiming to express in your photography?
Well, that's a big question. um, what sort of things am I aiming to? I guess it's different now. I've noticed a shift. Or at first, it was just getting the most grand things. I guess I still am in many aspects, but um, what am I aiming for? I think it's, I want hard to answer. I think the main objective is just to get better at photography.
Yeah, okay.
Um, that's the main thing. Other than that, it's learning more about different locations I go to, I think, and just seeing the very, like, just different aspects to the landscape. Um, and what I want to show off is, I'm not sure what I want to show off. Just cool things that I see along in my adventures, I guess.
Okay, that's a totally acceptable answer, I think.
Yeah, yeah, just cool things, just
Yeah.
cool locations, and really nice, or just different conditions that people normally wouldn't see. Yeah, just I guess it's part of it is just sharing my experiences.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I think for me anyway, you certainly doing that. You know, some of the shots that sort of stand out for me, like your, dusk till dawn things. You know, they just blow my mind. I can't imagine sitting still that long,
No.
because that's just me. Me and my ADD. But yeah, it amazes me that, the cool things that you're showing, I think, really show through in your work. And I think, for me, that's one of the main things that I look at and I go, wow, that's just so cool to actually see all of those events in one shot.
Huh.
And that, I guess that time dilation, or time shrinkage, if you like, from,
Mm.
that could be, as I say, up to 12 hours in a single shot. Is one of the coolest things that I have seen in photography for a while.
Oh, thank you.
What's success look like for you in your photography?
That one is it basically just boils down to just getting really good at photography. Really. I don't really have any like ambitions of, running my own workshops or anything, or
Okay.
I just want to just keep improving. And I know it's not a very clear goal, and that's an endless chase because it's not clear. But I think that's sort of what I enjoy about the whole photography thing. I can just constantly just find new ways to improve, and I
Yeah.
just like that process.
Yeah. How did you kick off your learning process? Was there any formal learning, or was it all sort of University of YouTube?
University of YouTube, that's a good one. Um, I think I first started off just learning off YouTube, and just going out to try a bunch of things. I did go to TAFE for a diploma in photography.
Okay.
Um, I would recommend it if you're like looking into like portraiture or product photography, or like a lot of studio-based stuff, because that's what they
Yep.
teach you. Um, and they do teach you a little bit about like color management and printing, so that's definitely interesting to learn.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they don't really teach you landscapes. But subconsciously, I wouldn't be surprised if what I learned during that TED course carried over into my landscape photography.
Yeah, I'd say from portrait, possibly less so in product, but even with product, you can learn a lot about how light works.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Uh, Studio very different, obviously, because you can control the light much better than you can in the real
Yeah.
world. The real
Yeah.
world, you get what you get, unless
Yeah.
you go out and spend a lot of money on big studio lighting setups that you can carry around with you. I don't know too many people that do that. Mind you, you do see people that use artificial lighting in landscape photography quite
Yeah,
well.
they do. Yeah.
Shots. But I think that understanding of light is universal, regardless of which
Mm.
photography genre you're shooting. The ability to actually look at shade and light, highlights and shadows, and the way the tonal range works. I think
Yes.
so. It's a universal lesson that those sorts of courses, I guess, whilst they don't strictly focus on landscapes, you can actually get a lot out of them. I think.
Yeah, you put it very yeah, that's I think you're right. It's yeah, especially when you're even just when you're setting up, like you're choosing to put a very particular light at a certain distance or with a certain quality to it.
Yeah.
And there's quite a bit of thought behind it. So in that way, you would just learn about light and all the properties of it.
What about the I guess the use of the tool itself? How did you sort of come to grips with the exposure triangle and the limitations of each bit of kit that you've got? Because lenses have their limitations, camera bodies and sensors have their limitations. Did you start off with full frame when you got your DSLR, or was it a crop sensor? Or
I had a so in my backpacking trip, I had a point and shoot with a manual setting.
yep,
That definitely helps in just learning the exposure triangle. And then my first DSLR was a crop sensor, which is good to learn on, but I quickly, I guess, found the limitations of like things like the dynamic range, for instance.
yeah, yeah.
Um, Especially because at that point I really started getting to just learning about editing and Adobe Lightroom and Photoshop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you learn sensor limitations pretty quickly once you start to edit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm interested, I guess, in how you balance the desire to create something that's unique with the need to sort of stay true to the reality of the scene. And I know, some of your shots distort that reality
Yeah,
because, you can't see a dawn and a sunset at the same time. and,
unfortunately,
and
not.
and the
No.
stars in the sky. I wish you could, and you're showing it. But I guess how do you sort of balance that desire to create something unique and all, but also sort of because I think one of the other factors in your work is that they are very grounded in reality. There's nothing, you know, I'm not saying there's no Photoshop because obviously you couldn't
Yes.
do what you do without it, but it's not something that you go, oh, well, that just, the color there looks fake, or, he's added a bunch of birds or trees or whatever it
Mm,
is to the elements in the photos are
yeah.
what's in front of you. And for me, that realism is actually a really strong part of that part of your work.
Um, so I think the rule that I pretty much never break is if if it wasn't there, then I'm not gonna have it in my shot. So
Yeah.
because as soon as I start allowing myself to do that, that pretty much nulls all my planning and all my efforts and all my patience. Because like if I could just take star trails out in my backyard and just add it to whatever shot I wanted to, then that
Well, you
just
can do that. Anyone,
yeah,
anyone
yeah, exactly. I could
who
do that,
wants to
but
can do that. Yeah.
yeah, but it goes back to like the whole challenge and adventure side of things where like I want to be able to challenge myself and I want to be able to go on adventures and see all these cool things. So that's definitely, I guess that's where I draw the line. If 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 I was set up there and like a particular aspect or a part of the scene wasn't there, then I'm not going to add it in. But if it
Yeah,
was there, then I'm going to go nuts.
yeah, cool. In terms of, you mentioned you mentioned the need to sort of keep this as only a part of your life, as opposed to making it your job, etc. How do you sort of see that panning out at the moment for you in terms of keeping it in that, you know, enthusiastic hobby,
Mm,
I guess, space,
yeah.
as opposed to moving it into something that you could make, quite a bit of money out of?
I think so. What was the original question? Is just how do I see myself?
Yeah, where do you see it going in terms of as a
Right.
hobby? As you said, there's
Yeah.
not much, I guess, direction for it in your life in terms of where it's going to go. You're enjoying getting out and
Yeah.
taking cool shots, but where do you see it going? Do you see it developing into something that you could monetize, or is it just not interesting enough to you to? Sorry, that's the wrong word. The monetization isn't interesting
Mm.
enough.
It's I think in terms of just monetization, I think if I found a way to monetize my photography without compromising, I guess that drive to go out and just go on adventures,
Yeah,
then if
yeah,
I somehow found a way to do that, then I think I would be very interested in it. But for now, I haven't figured out a way to do that. But that could also just be because I'm just not looking.
sure.
But currently, as far as in the short term, I guess you could say is, um, I guess I just work my normal job, have, you know, enough money to just go out on these to find these adventures, and
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
pretty happy with where I am. But um, that could just be like, what do they call it? And when you're just comfortable, but not really pushing,
yep,
like ambitious enough. I don't know. It's up. That could be just a trap that I'm putting myself in, but I guess we'll have to see where this goes.
yeah, yeah. Okay, that's cool. What do you do in terms of work-life balance? How much, how much is family? How much is work? How much is photography for you at the moment?
It's I, I actually don't really have much of a balance in terms of just like work life social balance. It's more I work throughout the week, but then in the evenings it's pretty much all dedicated to photography. So I'll be just editing. Um, I guess I do go train parkour just a couple of times a week, but
Mm-hmm.
other than that, it'll be come back from work, do the usual life things like cooking and eating and whatever. And then I'll go straight back to editing.
Yeah,
And then on
right.
the weekends, it's straight back to shooting. Or if the weather's just not right, then I'll just go back to editing.
Yeah,
So yeah, so I think I say that photography is not a job, but with the amount of hours I put into it already, it's a job
pretty
that doesn't.
close.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Yeah, well, podcasting's not a job for me either, but if you looked at the amount of time I put into it, yeah, it'd
Yeah.
be pretty close.
Still a lot of value though. I'm sure there's so many listeners that listen and just get value and insight and
I
knowledge
hope so.
from all these other photographers.
If nothing else, I get a lot of value out of it. So
Yeah,
for
awesome.
me, it's a great opportunity to talk to people like yourself and just hear what they've got to say and try and understand. I guess it helps me understand my work and where it fits in my life and where
Yeah.
uh, you know things that I'd like to do
Hmm.
with what I'm doing. It really it's helped me a lot in the last couple of years in trying to structure that in my mind. And that to me is one of the biggest benefits. So whether anyone else gets anything like that out of it, great. I'm over the moon if they do. but I'm getting a lot out of it, so I'll keep doing
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, that's all that matters.
it. You talked a bit about the Blue Mountains being a passion area. Is that a place that just keeps calling you back, or are there others that you're always drawn to? I know Blue Mountains. There's a couple of waterfalls and a couple of spots that I've seen sort of you've hit up quite a few times in your
Yeah.
portfolio. Is that one of the places that you just keep getting drawn back to?
Yeah. Yeah, the Blue Mountains is, I guess it's just where I grew up photographically, and it's just a place where I just constantly find new inspiration or just new spots to explore. Um, like I went to New Zealand in March
Yep.
for about 3 weeks. Um, and it was the landscapes are like insane, just mind blowing. But when I got back home and I went back to the Blue Mountains, I kind of just realized how good the Blue Mountains are. It's
Yeah. Okay.
like it's not like New Zealand's is definitely world class. Um, but I would say Blue Mountains is also quite up there,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
in terms of just how nice it is.
Yeah. I'd definitely agree. I'm not in saying that I haven't been to New Zealand South Island. I've only been to the North Island.
Yeah.
And most of those trips have been for work, so they're not really been photographic
Mm.
trips, unfortunately. Planning to get over there at some point, but
Yeah,
so
amazing.
I can't do a base comparison. I've been to the Rockies in Canada, Banff and all that sort of thing,
Oh,
and
I'm sure that's pretty comparable.
yeah, and
Yeah.
as you say, yeah, they haven't got the height or those dramatic peaks, but
Yeah.
there's still, I think there's still a drama in the landscape that
Yeah.
is, undeniable, and it wouldn't be a World Heritage area
Mm.
if there wasn't something about it that made it, valuable to people,
Yeah.
and so from my perspective, I agree. It's definitely one of my favourite spots to get to. Not the least because it's not that far from home.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a quick drive over and you're
Yeah,
there.
yeah. Um, in terms of uh, that nexus, I guess between where you shoot, how you shoot, and what you shoot, how does that play into your work? So does the place influence the style of shooting, and therefore that influences also back to where you repeatedly go, or is it more I like this style of shooting, so therefore and I like shooting these subjects, so therefore I go there? Which is it? Is it the place or the style that sort of drives
Mm.
the choices?
It's it's definitely the place. Um, that drives the choices to say visit there multiple times. But in saying that, I'm very aware that 99% of my work is on the super wide angle
Yeah,
lens.
yeah.
Um, so I think it's the place first, and then I try to find a composition that works with a wide angle lens.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so I think that's how it usually plays out.
Okay. What's your most memorable experience when you've been out shooting?
Most memorable. Uh, I guess the scary ones are the most memorable, right?
Yeah, sure.
Um, I think one of them was I was in the Warren Bungles, I think about
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago in summer. Um, I did post a shot of that moment. There was a storm that came over. And I pretty much just went. I went on a very particular day when there was no forecast for storms, so I thought I
Okay.
was safe.
Yeah.
But then by the time I got over to the peaks, um, I could see a little bit of heavy cloud, and then eventually those heavy clouds turned heavier, and the ambient light just dimmed more and more. And then I checked the radar, and um, there's a storm cell just heading straight to where I am. And at this point, I'm thinking, like it's gonna be like an hour to 2 hours to walk back. So I was pretty much stuck with this massive storm storm heading towards me. So I just sat there and shot it. But after my experiences shooting some storms in Sydney, I sort of knew what the different stages of the storm were. It was like, there's like you get the big shelf cloud, and then there's like a bit of a calm moment, and then once it hits, it really hits. Um, so once I shot it, I knew that big hit was going to come. So I just frantically just ran down as far as I could. Luckily, I found this like small little rock overhang where I could take shelter. But yeah, once it hit, it was just chaos for a few minutes. Just wind everywhere, rain, like branches breaking off. Yeah, that was scary.
That sounds pretty hairy. How did you sort of get out of it? Did you just sort of hang out under the rock shelf until it had all dissipated, or?
Yeah, I just waited it out. Luckily it passed. It didn't take very long to pass. It was
Yeah,
it's probably only like 20 minutes, but yeah, I just waited it out.
yeah. I think I remember seeing that shot.
Yeah, it's definitely a memorable shot. I'll look back on it fondly though. I'll definitely laugh every time I look back.
Would you repeat it?
Oh, definitely not.
Yeah, I mean the Warren Bungles. It's a fantastic area, and it's got some incredible features in it. But yeah, I think if you, it's a fairly long way from the
Yeah,
peaks down to where any of the car parks are or anything. So you're talking about, I mean, at least an hour and a half, possibly a 2 hour hike
yeah,
to get to anywhere where you can actually take some worthwhile photos. I mean, you can take worthwhile photos from the car park if you like, but
yeah. I mean, the
where's the
skies
fun
are
in
definitely dark enough there, right?
that? That's right. But I think, yeah, being that far from where you can get into a car and drive into
Yeah.
town and get safe, it's definitely going to be a fairly hair raising experience.
Mm, yeah. Another one was this is actually how I broke my first camera. Um,
Okay.
I was shooting on top of a waterfall, I think in Kangaroo Valley. It wasn't a very big one. It was like maybe 10 meters. And at this stage, I wasn't quite as experienced as I am now. Just physically just maneuvering around in a natural landscape. Um, and coming from a parkour background, I was pretty confident in my ability to just maneuver around.
Yeah.
Um, but that turned out to be, a downfall because as I was shooting, I took a step back and I remember stepping on this leaf that looked fine, and then just my feet just went
Oh,
from under me. So I fall down. I'm sliding on my butt towards the edge of this drop, and the whole time I'm thinking, crap, 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 crap. I'm gonna fall off this waterfall, and I slid far enough to the point where in the back of my head I was looking for spots that would be safest to land
wow.
because I thought I was going to go off. I was like, where is the safest? Where is the place that's least likely to kill myself, basically?
Yeah.
Um, and luckily, just before that, I stopped at the edge, but my camera just kept going and what went down.
Did you get it back?
Oh yeah, I climbed down and then got it back, but yeah, it was gone. It was definitely gone.
Was it insured?
No, unfortunately, no. I
Oh,
wasn't
bugger.
smart enough to insure it at that time.
Always insure your gear.
Yeah, lesson learned.
Definitely, definitely. Oh, speaking about lessons learned, what have you learned about the world through photography?
Oh, a lot. Um, I learned what natural places are like. I think before photography, I enjoyed, pretty scenes and natural
Sure.
landscapes as like a tourist, but I really learned what it's like to be in some natural spots. Even just like moving in a natural environment is very different to just urban life, I guess. Like
Yeah.
you move differently. There's the wind, like there's all these conditions that just hit you harder. It's yeah, you feel small and powerless,
Mm, mm.
and yeah, just things just happen because I guess the laws of physical laws of the universe, really, and they just happen just a cause and effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I was waterfall chasing down in the Kangaroo Valley, um, and this particular one you had to go quite off. Yeah, this particular one you had to go quite off track for it, and I remember. So it wasn't really there was no path there, but I remember getting to the bottom of this one waterfall, and then I had this moment where um, I kind of I kind of realized that the universe is just chaos. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
what I'm seeing in front of me with the waterfall and just rocks and trees just falling everywhere, and sort of in my head that was kind of like a metaphor for the universe, and just things just happen.
Mm.
Yeah, there's only just a few select physical laws that apply. Everything else just random.
Pretty random. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you prefer getting out and taking photos on your own, or do you prefer to go out with other people?
I definitely like going by myself, because I find I can focus a little bit more. Um, I think if I go with other people, I'm in the back of my head, I am thinking about um, them at times, just talking to them or making sure they're all right, or I'm just considering them. Whereas if I'm by myself, I've just
Mm.
consider solely on just my photography. But that said, um, there are some places where I definitely wouldn't want to be by myself, like say Kosciuszko, even
Sure.
in spring or autumn, where you're just safer in numbers. And I think if I was by myself in those places, I'd be more distracted about staying alive than actually taking
Yeah. The
photos.
weather up there can just change in a
Yeah,
heartbeat.
yeah.
Yeah.
So in that regard, I would be, yeah, I would definitely want other people with me.
Yeah, fair enough. What does your process look like in the field? What are you looking for? What are you thinking about when you're sort of starting out in a shoot? You parked up, you've hiked to where you want to be, and you've started to look for the elements that are going to make up your composition. What are you looking for? What are you thinking about?
The first thing is I kind of just look around and figure out, I guess, my main subject. And from that, then I can start looking for foreground, especially because I use the wide angle lens so much. I like incorporating foreground. Um,
Yep.
yeah, once I've found a main subject, I pretty much spend um, most of the time just looking for foreground, really. Trying different compositions, look at like a lock reg, like, oh, what if, I wonder what's over there, past
Mm.
this lock reg. It's mostly just getting to know that immediate spot and just looking around for foreground.
Yeah.
Um, and then once I've found that foreground and that composition, then it's for me, it's a matter of waiting for the light to, I guess, to what I think is the best for that day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I could always come back in better conditions, but yeah, I just wait out the light. So in a way, it is still sort of calculated. It's still a calculated approach in that I find the shot and then just wait for the light to come to
Yeah.
me. Whereas whereas if I had to just react to the light and find the composition right there and then, I think I'd be stuck.
Yeah. Right. Right. What do you do, I guess, when the light kind of fails you? You get skunked by horizon cloud or something like that. You don't get the color in the sky. How do you deal with that disappointment? Do you just say, "All right, I'll come back again another day," or is it, you know, does it sting a bit?
Oh, it always stings. It's not hiding from the sting. I think yeah, when those moments happen, I've already accepted that I'm going to come back at
Yeah.
another
Right.
time. Um, so I just use that moment to kind of just explore the area a little bit more in case I find an even better composition.
Uh-huh.
Um, but that said, recently, I got a 100 to 400 milliliter lens, super telephoto.
Yep.
And I'm finding in those moments I can just bring out the super, like the telly, and just because there's always going to be small little snippets of gold that you can shoot.
Yeah, right.
And I'm finding that with the telly, I can just shoot even if the weather's not ideal for a wide angle lens.
Yeah.
It's definitely because I haven't really got much practice with the lens. I'm still very much in the learning curve, but
Yeah.
quite excited to see where it goes.
Yeah. Cool. So you've got the shots, you've got home. Are you straight onto the computer and into edit, or you take your time and let them marinate for a while?
I know. I've got shots months ago that I've looked at from the back of the camera, but I haven't even imported them into the catalog.
Wow.
Um,
I do that just to back them up, so that
yeah,
if the card does fail or the camera gets pinched or whatever, I don't lose them.
yeah. I probably should back my photos up more often, at least. But in terms of when I start editing them, I sort of just edit them. I edit a photo once I just feel like editing it. I find that like in that process, I look at it a little bit more objectively.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it kind of forces me to remember what it was like being in that moment without as much subjectivity, I guess you could say.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Are you doing much in the way of printing? You mentioned learning a bit of color management and printing techniques at TAFE. Do you do any printing yourself, or do you use services at all to print your work?
I don't have a printer because that's a whole nother field where you can lose yourself into because it's
Oh
just
yeah, definitely.
yeah, it's so much that goes into printing. So I use other like professional labs for my work.
Yeah,
Um, I used to print more, but I'm not really sure why I stopped. Probably because it's so expensive. But
yeah. It's not
yeah,
not a cheap exercise if you print a lot. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. But I would definitely like to print some of the more memorable shots.
yeah, yeah. What sort of things are you talking to your printer about when you getting an image ready for print?
Um, Usually it's just can you? For me, it's not very technical. It's just can you? I usually just do a really small test print, and it usually looks okay because I've got a printer down in Waverley, and he's usually good, and I've
Mm-hmm.
always just been happy with the work he does.
Yep.
So I just trust him to do whatever he needs to do, and then once I see a small little test print and I like it, I just go, yeah, okay, let's print it big.
What do you do when you hit a creative wall, and how do you know get around it? And are there any strategies you use to stay inspired and engaged?
Um, Creative wall, as in you find yourself struggling to improve, or you find yourself
Yeah, well, you
sort of
could be struggling to improve, or you just go, I don't feel like going out and shooting, and it's just you get those times where it's just like, I just don't feel it,
right.
or
Okay.
don't you get those?
No, I don't. I don't really find myself like running out of motivation.
Okay,
Let's say I always want to just just create better work.
yeah,
But I do find myself in situations where I feel like I'm not progressing. Um, and in those moments, I did buy like quite a few tutorials, and I do go back and just rewatch them to see if I've missed anything, to see if
yeah,
I
right.
could, and or other times I just take a step back and come back in a day or two and then just keep going.
Yeah, cool, cool. What do you see as the biggest challenge facing photography right now, and where do you see photography going in the future?
The biggest challenge right now, I mean, it would have to be AI now. Um,
It's definitely a hot topic.
it's always getting better. It's constantly getting better, and many non-photographers already have a hard time distinguishing between a real photo and a
Yeah,
AI photo. Um, But in terms of the future, I think once everyone gets used to I think, in my opinion, I think sort of like, when things get mass produced and other things get handmade,
Yep.
and we
Yep.
value handmade things, I think in a way, photography will be like that, in
Yeah.
that people will just value, um, I guess, real work, um, compared to AI. So I think the more realistic a photo is in terms of, I guess, what we experience, and not the super saturated, dramatic ones, but
Mm,
the more realistic, quiet ones, I think they're going to be the most popular.
yeah. I hope you're right. I don't know. I do think the commercial arena is probably where the biggest threat is.
Yeah.
Even down to the modeling industry. Where models are being photographed. I think yes, there will still be a place for that authenticity of and the reality of that, but the commercial side of things, I think, will simply, for cost reasons, drive away from that.
Yeah.
It'll be a zero sum game for somebody to go out and hire a photographer and a model, and if it's fashion or a product shoot that they want to do, when they can go to a computer and type in a few words and hone that, and then give that to a graphic designer who can hone it and perfect
Yeah.
it for exactly what they want for the campaign. And
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think commercially it just makes more sense, right? To just go
I,
that route.
I just know what marketing firms. Well, I know what companies are like. Doesn't matter. They don't have to be a
Yeah.
marketing firm, because I think even the marketing firms are probably looking down the barrel of a bit of a shake up in that regard as well, because it'll be really down to how clever the marketing guy in an
Mm.
organization is going to be
Yeah.
around using the tools themselves, or whether they're going to pay to outsource that. And yeah, okay, there might be a little market in people being able to cleverly use prompts and whatever, but
Mm.
I think the more interesting thing for me is how people will distinguish journalistic images
Yeah.
when you can type in, say, create an image of Donald Trump being arrested in New York, like
Yeah.
somebody did,
Yeah.
a month or so ago, and it generates an image, and then they post it and people go, oh my God, Trump's been arrested, when he hasn't, or whatever.
Yeah. That is a scary future we're looking at, because it's just going to
Yeah.
get more
So I
prevalent.
mean, the real issue there will be reportage and what is
Yeah.
true. You know, and I think the risks there are obviously that people will use it for their own aims to generate content that isn't real,
Mm.
and that's a real risk if you can't distinguish what's real and what's not.
Yeah. No, I agree. Definitely.
Where do you see the future of photography going, though?
I think it'll just, I'm not sure. It's, I think there's still going to be I guess you could say, the art section of it, where people just do it because of the art.
Yeah, I think
Um,
I won't stop going out
yeah,
into the field and taking nature shots, because I enjoy doing it.
yeah,
And
exactly.
for me, for me, that's what it's largely about, is the enjoyment of getting out there and the
Yeah,
experience.
yeah, I think
Less
that's always
so,
going to be a thing.
less so the images. I mean, the images that I get out of the place, I'm wanting to record them, and I'm wanting to take them for my own creativity, but
Mhm.
the experience is actually what it's really all about. I don't think, for me, there's nothing better than standing knee deep in a wave on a rock shelf, before the sun's come up, and you're there on your own, and
Yeah,
there's not many people around.
yeah, it's definitely a good feeling. But other than that, other than, I guess, artistic pursuits, I think it'll be a real challenge. Um, like you were saying, with the commercial and product photographers. I think that's definitely going to be a challenge for those guys.
What's social media to you in terms of your sort of profile as a photographer?
It used to be a very big thing for me. I was chasing likes and followers as well.
Yeah,
Uh,
everybody does. Yeah.
yeah. Nowadays, I think I did hit that point where I reached 10,000 followers. But you get that K after the 10K.
Yep.
At that point, it mattered a little bit less, and then that's continued on now, where I'm spending like very little time on social media.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when I do go on it, just to sort of just see what new work people like everyone's been producing,
Yep. Yep.
or just making some comments or just replying to some messages. But other than that, I'm not really spending that much time on social media.
Yeah. Interesting. What's your favorite thing about being a photographer?
Oh, it's really fun. Just being outside, just being on these adventures. I just really enjoy the process.
What's your least favorite thing?
Oh, waking up early for sure.
Yeah, I'm the
Yeah,
same.
I like my sleep, but photography goes against that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, landscape photography anyway.
Yeah.
uh, what what would you say to somebody that's just starting out and wanting to get into landscape photography? What tips would you give them?
I would say don't spend so much on the gear because you'll figure out what gear you really want to shoot and what style you really want to shoot. I think most important thing is setting your fundamentals down. So just understanding the theoretical side of photography through practice.
Mm,
So I guess just shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot, and then eventually you get to a point where you will know what gear you need. You will know. Um, so in that process, you'll also learn like about all sorts of locations and different spots and like what conditions mean.
yep,
Yeah, I think main focus should be just absorbing as much knowledge as possible, and you only get that through just practice and experience.
that's great advice. Who do you think I should be talking to uh, in upcoming episodes?
Um, Matt Finn.
Yep.
I think he'd be really, really fun to listen to because he just goes on these crazy canyoning
Yeah.
trips and just chasing waterfalls like no one else. Um, I think Will Leeds could be also a good one.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be cool to hear some of his stories about storm photography.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Do you know Daniel? I think his name was Daniel T. Gum.
Can't say I've come across his work yet.
Okay, he's an astrophotographer just based in New South Wales.
Cool.
Yeah, he does really nice just astro work, and I think I'd find it interesting to just hear about his process.
Nice, nice. Yeah. Thanks for that. I've got one more question for you, and for many listeners, it's the most important one. Do you
Oh, it's
like
coming.
pineapple on pizza?
It's coming. Yeah, I don't mind it. I don't mind pineapple and pizza. I'm pretty open with trying all sorts of different foods. So, I'm not really stuck in one method of doing pizza.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Been absolutely brilliant to have a chat to you today, mate.
Yeah, likewise.
Where can people find your work?
Usually just through my Instagram. Don't go to my website until I update it because I haven't updated in a while. But Instagram, Chungy_photos.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks again, mate.
Thanks, Grant.
Thanks for listening to Landscape Photography World. I hope you enjoyed the show and keep listening because I'll be joined by some great guests in upcoming episodes. You can find my work in this podcast at grantswinburnphotography.com. I'm also on Vero, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. If you want to buy my prints or book a workshop, you can also find those at grantswinburnphotography.com. I'm Grant Swinburne. Hope to see you out shooting soon.